The police watched the security footage over 20 times. They saw Ethan enter the forest at 3:26 p.m. What they never saw was him come back out.
At first, everything about the hike appeared routine. Ethan had explored these trails before, and there was no reason to believe this day would be any different. He continued deeper into the woods, following the narrow path ahead. With every step, the sounds of nearby roads and distant traffic began to fade. Soon, all that remained was the sound of wind moving through the trees. Then even that seemed to disappear. As the forest grew darker, Ethan noticed something unusual between the trees. Far in the distance stood what appeared to be a person, completely motionless, not walking, not looking around, just standing there. At first he assumed it was another hiker, but something about the figure felt wrong. The longer he looked, the more uncomfortable he became. Trying to convince himself there was nothing strange about the situation, Ethan lifted his camera and took a photograph. The figure remained exactly where it was, silent, unmoving, hidden among the trees. He lowered the camera and looked again. Nothing had changed. A few seconds later, Ethan took another picture. When he checked the screen, his stomach dropped. The figure appeared much closer than before. Not slightly closer, significantly closer, yet he hadn't seen it move. There had been no footsteps, no sound, nothing. Fear began to take over. Ethan slowly stepped backward, keeping his eyes fixed on the figure. Every instinct told him something wasn't right. The silhouette remained perfectly still, almost blending into the darkness around it. And somehow, that made it even worse. Then, through the fog, Ethan noticed something ahead. Rising above the trees was an abandoned fire lookout tower. Pause one's old, isolated, forgotten. It looked like the only place nearby where he could get a better view of the forest. Without wasting another second, he headed toward it. The wooden stairs creaked beneath his weight as he climbed. The higher he went, the thicker the fog seemed below him. His flashlight bounced across the weathered boards and rusted railings. He climbed faster, hoping distance would finally separate him from whatever was out there. When Ethan finally reached the top, he immediately looked down toward the forest. The figure was gone. There was nothing below except darkness and fog stretching in every direction. For the first time in what felt like hours, he allowed himself to breathe. Standing alone on the platform, Ethan tried to calm down under earth. Maybe there had never been anyone there. Maybe exhaustion was playing tricks on him. The forest below remained silent, unnaturally silent, and for a moment, everything seemed still. Then he heard something behind him. A faint sound, barely noticeable at first. It wasn't coming from the forest below. It was coming from somewhere on the tower itself. Ethan froze. His heart raced as he turned around and aimed the flashlight into the darkness. The beam cut through the fog, illuminating sections of the platform one by one. But there was nobody there. Nothing moved. Nothing appeared out of place. Yet the feeling of being watched refused to go away. Suddenly, the camera slipped from Ethan's hands. It struck the wooden floor and slid across the platform. The impact echoed through the tower. What happened next remains unknown, because after that moment, nobody ever saw Ethan again. 3 days later, search teams reached the tower. There, resting on the platform, they discovered Ethan's camera. It was exactly where it had fallen. The battery still worked. The memory card was intact, but Ethan was nowhere to be found. Years later, Ethan was never found. No body, no explanation, no answers. But many investigators still believe the key to the mystery exists somewhere inside those final photographs, especially the last one. A photograph that, according to reports, has never been released to the public. And perhaps there is a reason for that.